Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a celebration of one of the most beloved and extraordinary characters in children's literature, Pippi Longstocking. And tonight we're going to travel into a colorful world created by a Swedish author, and where anything is possible and adventures are waiting around every corner. At the edge of a little town sits an old house called Villekulla. It may look ordinary from the outside, but inside lives an extraordinary girl. Her name is Pippi Longstocking. Pippi is 9 years old and she has bright red pigtails that stick straight out from her head, freckles across her nose, mismatched stockings, and a smile that is ready for adventure. She lives all by herself at Villekulla with a faithful monkey, Mr. Nelson, and a horse that lives right on the porch. Pippi's father, Captain Longstocking, was a brave sea captain who sailed the oceans of the world. After being swept overboard during a terrible storm, Pippi became convinced that he had survived, floated to a faraway island, and became king of a tropical kingdom. While she waits his return, Pippi fills her days with adventures, imagination, and lots of fun. Now, Pippi is just not a regular child. In fact, she may be the strongest child in the entire world. She can lift a horse with ease, outsmart grown-ups, and turn even the simplest day into an unforgettable adventure. Living next door are two children who couldn't be more different from Pippi Longstocking, Tommy and Annika. Tommy is thoughtful and well-behaved. Annika is sweet, careful, and always tries to do the right thing. At first, they think Pippi is the strangest person they ever met. But before long, however, they discover that she is the most exciting friend they could ever have. Together, Pippi, Tommy, and Annika embark on adventures filled with laughter, surprises, and a little bit of embellishment. Whether they're exploring, playing games, attending parties, or dreaming of faraway places, one thing is always true. When Pippi Longstocking is around, anything can happen. And speaking about anything happening, we have some guests from a faraway place. You know what? This guest that we have today created Pippi in her imagination before she put her into print. And so I would like for you to give a big round of applause for our Swedish author that's visiting Kilmarnock just for today, Astrid Lindgren.
I have some words in my chicken purse. Well, hello, we're so glad you're here. My name's Astrid Lindgren, and we're so glad we're spending time with us today. I was born in a small town in Sweden. When I was a little girl, I loved to climb trees and play outside and to make up stories. Looking back, I never really stopped doing any of those things. I simply grew up and became a storyteller. People ask me all the time where I found the inspiration for my most famous character, Pippi Longstocking. And the truth is, she came to me in a most unexpected way. My daughter Karen became pretty ill when she was about 9 years old and had to stay in bed for a long time. One evening, she asked me to tell her a story. And instead of asking for a story about a princess or a fairy, she said, "Tell me a story about Pippi Longstocking." The funny thing is, I'd never heard of Pippi Longstocking before that moment. Karen invented the name. It was such a delightfully unusual name that I knew I had to imagine what kind of little girl would have it. Before long, I could see her as clearly as if she were right here in the room with us. She had bright red hair and two stiff braids that stuck straight out from her head. She had freckles sprinkled across her face, wore mismatched stockings and shoes that were way too big. And she was 9 years old, like my daughter Karen. But Pippi was no ordinary little girl. She was the strongest girl in the world. She could lift her horse right off the ground if she wanted to. But despite all of her strength, she never used it to bully others. Instead, she stood up for people who needed help and reminded us that kindness is every bit as important as strength. Pippi lived all by herself at Villekulla with her faithful monkey, Mr. Nielsen, and her horse. Captain Ephraim Longstocking, her dad, sailed the seas, leaving Pippi free to live on her own terms. She didn't worry much about what other people expected. She spoke her mind, she trusted herself, and she found adventures wherever she went. I think that's one of the reasons that children loved her so much. She represented something every child dreams about: freedom, courage, imagination, and believing that anything is possible. Of course, Pippi wasn't completely alone. Her wonderful neighbors, Tommy and Annika, became her best friends and often joined her on her adventures. Through their eyes, readers discovered just how extraordinary everyday life could become if you look at the world with curiosity and imagination. Soon, there were more books, and they were all welcomed into children's hearts everywhere. The other books after Pippi Longstocking were Pippi Goes on Board and Pippi in the South Seas, and then there were stage plays and TV shows and movies. Before long, children around the world were reading about Pippi in dozens of different languages. Whether they called her Pippi, Nagakushita no Pippi in Japan, or by another name entirely, they knew exactly who Pippi was. To me, that's always been the greatest story. Not selling books, but knowing that children from so many places could laugh at the same stories, cheer for the same brave little girl, and perhaps feel just a bit braver themselves. I've always believed that stories have a wonderful power. They help children to dream bigger, laugh louder, and discover that being different is something not to hide, but to celebrate. And perhaps that's Pippi's greatest lesson of all. She reminds us that we don't have to fit neatly into everybody else's expectations. We can be kind, adventurous, imaginative, and wonderfully ourselves. And now, I hope you're ready for a little adventure of your own. After all, with Pippi Longstocking, anything can happen. So now, I have to introduce you to somebody else really special. When this seafaring island king isn't ruling his South Sea paradise, he's traveling the globe or making surprise visits to Villekulla. He can carry a horse, survive a shipwreck, and match Pippi's wildest tales word for word. I give you the sea captain, terror of the seas, Camel King, and Pippi's dad, Ephraim Longstocking.
Ahoy, mates!
Ahoy!
Avast! When you're picking up the scuttlebutt, set aside the grog pitcher. We haven't broken it out yet, quite so that's a good thing, probably. and prepare to have a true adventure with our heroine, Pippi Longstocking. But first, let me ask for a great big round of applause for the leading Lancaster literacy person, our own children's librarian, Ms. Tanya. Thank you so much. Now, I want to read a letter that I wrote to Pippalota, my dear Pippalota, to let her know that I was coming on board my brave ship, the Hop Toad. My dear Pippalota, when you get this, you might as well go down to the harbor and start looking for the Hop Toad, because I'm now coming to get you and bring you to Kura Island for a while. You ought to at least see the country where your father has become such a powerful king. It's really nice here, and I think you would like it and feel at home. My faithful subjects are looking forward very much to meeting the Princess Villekulla, of whom they have heard so much. There is nothing further to be said in the matter. You are coming to this, my kingly and fatherly wish. This is a really big kiss and my fond regards from your old father, Captain Ephraim I. Longstocking. Now, a little bit about myself. Like that great mariner Odysseus, I have visited many lands and learned the minds of many people. And as Miranda said to another island king, Prospero, "Oh, great new world that has such a Pippa in it." Not quite what she said, but that's okay. I have been in all 7 oceans. I've got more salt water in my veins than blood now. I've worn out more sea bags than most of you have socks. I have had adventures far and near, but nothing compares to the adventure that comes from being associated with Pippa Longstocking. She is the light of the world. She does things that are amazing, that are incredible, and frankly unbelievable, except we know they all happen because we've seen her in action. So please, let me now introduce our very own Pippi Longstocking.
Hi, my name is Pippalana Delicatesso Window Shade Macrament Ephraim's daughter Longstocking. You can call me Pippi. I'm the strongest girl in the world. Come with me. Welcome to my house, Villekulla. Isn't it wonderful? Yeah. Yes, thank you. My garden is perfect for climbing trees, chasing adventures, and getting gloriously dirty. You like to get dirty? Awesome. What? Yes. Well, maybe. We'll see. Oh, but have you met my horse? He lives on the porch. Why the porch? Well, I certainly can't keep him in the kitchen. He'd be in the way. Yeah, he would be in the kitchen, but see if I just lifted. Stay on the porch. Stay. He doesn't care much for the parlor, so the porch suits him just fine, unless he decides to fall down and take a nap. And this handsome fellow right here is Mr. Nilsson. Go ahead, Mr. Nilsson, show everyone your best hat. He says hi, say hi. Isn't he just the most polite monkey you've ever met? And I hear you all have had the giant pleasure of just meeting my father, King Ephraim Longstocking, ruler of Villekulla Island, otherwise known as Captain Ephraim Longstocking, captain of the mighty ship the Hop Toad, otherwise known as my father and favorite person in the world, and not just because he lets me live in this wonderful big old house with no grown-ups, just a monkey, a horse, and a big suitcase full of gold, but because he's the one who taught me that life is one big adventure you ought to enjoy. Now, since you're here at my house, let's talk pancakes. we have pancakes later. Some people, when they make pancakes, like to crack their eggs into a bowl. But where's the fun in that? I like to toss mine way up in the air. Sometimes they land in the bowl, sometimes they land in my head. That's perfectly fine because egg yolk is wonderful for your hair, as you can tell right here. At least I'm fairly certain it is. I mean, look at that. Then I stir everything together, sometimes with a spoon, sometimes with the bath brush. Because wash the bath brush is only clean bathrooms. They're good for other things too. When it's time to flip the pancake, I toss it as high as I can. If it lands on a plate, marvelous. If not, well, that's just part of the adventure. You know, grown-ups spend far too much time worrying about doing everything the right way. I think life is much more fun when you laugh, try new things, and remember that anything can happen. Now, I have some very important questions. Have you met my friends Tommy and Annika? They're very quiet. They were raised properly by their parents, or so I'm told they are very proper because they're very quiet. Now, let me ask all of you a question. Have any of you ever been a thing finder? Raise your hand if you've ever been a thing finder. I see a few. Awesome. Well, if you haven't, today might be your lucky day. So, let me tell you a little story. One morning, I was here at Villekulla making my Swedish cookies. We have some of those on the table for later as well. I made so much cookie dough that the kitchen table simply was not big enough, so I rolled it out on the floor instead. Nothing wrong with that. Mr. Nielsen thought it looked like a wonderful place for a walk, so he marched right through it and left tiny milky footprints all on the cookie. Stay in my house. Just then, my friends Tommy and Annika stopped by. I was covered from head to toe in flour. Every time I shook my apron, another cloud of flour flew into the air. It looked like it was snowing in the middle of summer here. After the cookies were baking, Tommy asked, "Well, what shall we do now?" "I know," I told him. "Let's go be thing finders." A thing finder is someone who looks for wonderful things that everyone else walks right past. This world is full of treasures. You simply have to know how to look. So off we went. I'll enjoy that. Before long, I found a magnificent treasure, an old rusty tin can. And Tommy said, "It's just an old tin can." "Just an old can?" "Oh no, if you put cookies in it, it's a cookie jar. If you don't put cookies in it, it's a jar without cookies. That's useful too." Then I put it on my head like a fancy hat and accidentally walked straight into the fence. But that's all right. Adventures are much more exciting when they include a little bump now and then. Next, I found an empty thread spool, and I declared it the greatest thing finding day ever. And we put it into our thing finder box of faith, which you all will get to pick some things out of the thing finder later when we put Pippi. Yay! You see, that's the secret. Woo! Adventures aren't hiding in faraway places. They're all around us. Sometimes all it takes is a little imagination to turn an ordinary day into an extraordinary one. So today, I want all of you to become thing finders. Look carefully, laugh often, and never forget that anything can happen. So now, if you want, I'd like to tell you about two of my favorite adventures. The first one is when I was at home one day, Tommy and Annika told me they didn't have school because it was scrubby vacation. Well, I thought that sounded like a splendid holiday. If everyone else got a scrubby vacation, then I surely deserved one too. So, in my kitchen, I poured a giant kettle of water all over my kitchen floor, tied scrub brushes to my bare feet, and sand all over the kitchen. I swished, I spun, I slid from one end of the room to the other. I even kicked my foot so high that I knocked a piece off the ceiling lamp. That's what happens when you're especially graceful. When the floor was clean enough, Annika asked, "Well, aren't you going to dry it?" "Certainly not," I said. "The floor can dry itself. Floors are going to be independent." Then I had an even better idea. A picnic. So, we packed sandwiches, pancakes, sausages, and pineapple into the woods. Along the way, a cow was blocking our path, so I simply picked her up and moved her somewhere else, more convenient for me. She looked terribly surprised. We laughed and ate until our bellies were full. Then, Tommy and Annika convinced me to try something even stranger. It was called school. I only agreed because I heard that they had something called Christmas vacation, and I thought perhaps I could skip straight to that. The next morning, I rode my horse. We woke up right into the schoolyard. I marched into the classroom and asked, am I in time for the fluidification? Well, nobody knew what fluidification was. Can you believe that? You guys know what it is? Then the teacher asked me what 7 plus 5 was. I didn't understand what she was asking me, or I knew the answer. Why was she asking me? Next, everyone wanted to count apples instead of eating them. Then we had to draw pictures, but the paper was so tiny there wasn't enough room to draw my whole horse, so I decided to draw him on the school floor. By the end of the day, that didn't go well. So by the end of the day, I decided school was full of arithmetic, apples, and sitting still. And I much prefer adventures, treasure hunts, picnics, and a little fluidification whenever possible. So I have a few questions for you guys. Has anyone here ever scrubbed the floor with brushes tied to their feet? No? You should try it. It's a lot of fun. However, don't grab a hold of the dishwasher while it's running and use that to propel you around the kitchen floor when it's an older one. Hook to the sink because you'll break the dishwasher and you might get into trouble. Now, has anyone here ever ridden a horse to school? No? I didn't think so. Can anyone here tell me what fluidification is? Because I've been trying to get that answer for years. Well, perhaps it's time for all of you to have a few more adventures. Now, you better hurry out and get some snacks, because if you don't get some snacks, you can't come back to play the games, and that would be a terrible shame. Because remember with me, anything can happen. So now what we're going to do is everybody, and we got some pancake bars, because of course Pippi was a pancake bar, and we have some snacks back there. Everybody can hurry to help themselves and get the snacks and come back to the table, and we're going to do some games.
I think the pancakes are ready.
And bring it back. We got to get out of the way.
No, I'm getting one.
I think we're separate with
There's chips over here. You want to